the NBA breathes a sigh of relief with the with the Knicks holding on to beat the Pistons and the Warriors holding on to beat Houston. So I had picked Houston in 7. I thought their depth and athletic ability, I knew they weren't a great half-court offense. And in the end, Jason Timpf hoops tonight. In the end, they got so many bad, awful half-court possessions. And, it's funny, just for all the Curry struggles in the first half, Kuminga, you can't have him on the floor. In the end, I'll say this, and it wasn't a great night offensively. I mean, it's 103-89. It was not a great night for the Dubs, and their defense was tremendous. But I did think, Jason, on average, they just got more organized, better looks. Even when Curry was struggling, Buddy Hield was getting good looks. Pods was getting good looks. And in the end, it's just youth. It's like watching the most talented college basketball team of all time with Houston. You're like, could we run a play? If not for Amen Thompson in the first 3 quarters, I'm like, would they even be in the game? So again, just the experience, those crucial second half possessions. Warriors look more organized. They look more experienced to me.
Yeah, the margins are pretty slim, Colin. Like, it was here we were, Houston, game 7. They're on a run. It's 63-60 as Amen Thompson starts taking over there in the third quarter. And it's like, literally could have gone either way at that point. But what happened at that point, which I thought was super fascinating, was that was really when Steph Curry started to assert himself.
Yeah.
And as I came out of game 6, there were 2 main areas where I thought Golden State had obvious ability to just play better, so to speak. And it was, one, they had completely lost control of Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun defensively.
Yeah.
They had 50 points in game 6. Those 2 guys both looked completely held under control in tonight's game. And so that was the first big one. Get control of Fred, get control of Sengun. Shout out to Looney and Draymond. I thought those 2 guys just did an unbelievable
Looney was
job.
huge. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then as all of their guards did a great job on Fred VanVleet throughout the game, a bunch of different guys got minutes on him. The second piece of it was there's a pretty strong correlation in this series, with exception of game 4. There was a pretty strong correlation in this series between Steph's shot making and the Warriors winning. When he was going offensively, they were in control. And when he would cool off, Houston was able to get enough stops to kind of get in transition and get going. And one of the things that Steph did in that second half was he just stopped running off ball and he just started bringing the ball up the floor. And he brought the ball up the floor and he just started spamming high ball screens. And he got a bunch of good looks for himself and for his teammates out of that. That has been kind of the break glass in case of emergency Warriors offense for years now, is when things bog down for them, they'll just let Steph run high pick and roll. And again, like I think he finished with 20 or 20 something points. That's underselling his impact, because he had 0 up until the very end of the first half. And so he scored at a top tier superstar level during that second half stretch when they really pulled away. And the last piece I wanted to shout out was Buddy Hield. The numbers coming out of game 6 were pretty strong, that the Warriors were better with Buddy Hield on the floor versus Gary Payton. And this is not an anti-Gary Payton take. I'm a big Gary Payton fan. It's just they don't need his upside as much in this particular matchup because they're not guarding really high level guards. Next round, they're going to need him for Anthony Edwards. They're going to need him in a big way. But in this series, with the way Houston was guarding, having that other shooter on the floor that could really complement what Steph was doing, that was a big, I thought Gary Payton getting sick almost helped Steve Kerr in that way, because it almost forced him to lean into Buddy more. Yeah. And Buddy was fantastic, but that was just championship Warriors basketball when it mattered, and a lot of immature basketball from Houston, and that was the difference.
Yeah, I mean, shot making matters. Buddy, I think, finished with 7 threes. It was an interesting game when Curry was struggling in the first half. Buddy was huge. I thought Pods hit a couple of big baskets. There's going to be people that are just never going to like Draymond Green. Look, I get it. But he had a couple of big plays, just big baskets. And, then he was shooting back-to-back threes, and that was end of the clock, and it was bad Warrior possessions. But when Steph, at one point I'm looking up and I'm like, Warriors lead, and Steph had like 2 points or 4 points. I'm like, God, they're in good shape. This is just incredible. And, the thing about Curry when you watch him, and Steph has these games. Steph has these halves. He's like, where'd he go? And it's not that he needs the confidence, but Steph is not he's such an collaborative force that if he's off, he's really good at decoying. He's really good at off-ball stuff. And sometimes I almost feel like Kerr has to say, hey, bro, this is your offense. Like, we're not going to do this. You're going to bring the ball up and make shots. And I don't know. I felt like the team knew Steph wasn't playing great and everybody else and then did you notice when Steph was playing great, everybody finds their perfect role. You know, Butler's like, okay, now they need me late. I'm going to take, he had like a little 6-0 run. But I find that the team, there's a harmony, especially with like Pods has it now. Like he knows, okay, Steph's on a heater. Steph's hot. Set screens for Steph. You can sense the team senses, okay, Steph's back, guys. Everybody get the pitching staff in order now. Everybody knows where their spot on the floor is, right?
Yeah, in general, you can tell that the team kind of senses whether or not Steph's in one of those zones. And I mean, Steph will send his own signals. Like there were stretches over the entire second half of the series where you could tell Steph was like, in this part of the game, I'm not really looking to be aggressive. I'm looking to save energy. And I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if you noticed this, Colin, but whenever he would, in the second half, he was doing this to save energy. He would come off the high ball screen, and if Houston ever defended it well, like if they didn't get anything out of that first action, he would like take whoever was guarding him, whether it was Dillon Brooks or Amen Thompson or whatever, he'd go stand out by almost half court and just let them face guard him out there so the other guys could play 4-on-4. And it's just part of the energy conservation piece of it that you can tell Steph was finding little parts. The point is like with Steph, it's flurries. It's these 6 or 7 possessions where he makes 4 or 5 shots and it blows a 5-point lead into a 17-point lead. That Steph is very much an avalanche type of player, and that's the entire team is built around that. And to your point, like I mentioned off the top when we were talking about the defensive end, the two things they had to fix were they needed to get Steph going and they needed to get Fred and Şengün under control. You want to know why the Warriors had a lead despite Steph not playing so well? They completely shut down Şengün and Fred to start the game. And look, Draymond had a really bad offensive series. There were some very specific reasons for that. The Rockets put Fred VanVleet on him so that they could switch ball screens. One of the biggest pieces of offensive utility for Draymond on this team is him running ball screens with Steph and getting to make the decisions as the guy leading the 4-on-3 on the other side of the team blitzing Steph Curry. As soon as they put Fred VanVleet on him, it kind of neutralizes Draymond offensively and turns him into a spot-up shooter, which, by the way, he did hit a couple threes to start this game. But that puts Draymond in a predicament where he has to be fantastic defensively to really be valuable. And I thought Draymond was amazing defensively in this game. He was the one who stonewalled Şengün. Şengün was not getting to his short hook in this game. He kept having to turn over his right shoulder and take one-leg fadeaways along the baseline. Draymond had Şengün in jail tonight. And so, like, you always have to look beyond just the box score with him. He's the foundational piece of everything that makes them great defensively.
It's going to be interesting for Houston because, like, Amen Thompson was so valuable to them tonight, especially when VanVleet. I mean, Jalen Green, to me, I'd move him tomorrow. He's a little like Kuminga, where I know I'm getting a world-class athlete, but Jonathan just doesn't feel natural offensively. He doesn't, sometimes he's like a lost kid at the park. Like he's just kind of like, I'm not sure where I fit. And you're like, dude, you are long and athletic. Get near the rim, something good will happen. And he's hovering on the outside. Amen Thompson makes himself so useful. It doesn't matter what it is. It's keeping a ball active. It's on the floor. It's being a defender. Like the dude is just an annoyance. And then offensively, he's just so aggressive. It's not Westbrook, but it's some guys in this league that are so aggressive. Players don't want to face him. They don't want to guard him. They don't want to be in their space. Butler's got a little bit of that, but he's a much better offensive player. But I was thinking as I watched Houston, I would keep Şengün, who Milwaukee would want a Giannis trade. Anybody would. And I would keep Amen Thompson. But I was talking to an NFL GM years and years ago. He goes, when you make a big trade, everybody thinks we want draft picks. But I don't want 9 draft picks. Your team gets too young. And like veteran coaches get really frustrated with 22-year-olds. Houston is literally too young. Like they go to the bench and it's a 22-year-old. And I sat and I said, I keep Şengün young. I keep Amen Thompson. I would move some of those young players. I felt like, I mean, Van Vliet's great. He really knows his role. But I think sometimes they need to develop these offensive players, these young guys. They're dependent. If Fred's not hitting, they can really struggle, Jason, in half court. And I mean just getting good looks if he's struggling.
There were points in this game where I was like, man, I kind of think Amen Thompson or Jabari Smith Jr. going one-on-one is a better option than Şengün and Fred because of how in jail those two guys were. You know, I was thinking about it tonight as we were watching these crazy Amen Thompson like wing drives where they kind of just let him, if he brings the ball up in transition and he comes up the left wing and he likes the matchup in front of him, they'll kind of just space and let him go one-on-one. Yeah. And it actually reminds me a little bit of Zion Williamson in the sense that like no one can keep him in front off the dribble, and then he just pops up off the ground just short of the rim, and he could shoot little floaters, short jump shots, and little scoops all over the place. He had an insane move tonight where he hit a behind the back dribble into like a crazy up and under on the other side of the rim, and I was like, good God, this is like a NBA superstar type of play. But Amen Thompson to me is completely untouchable. Şengün, it's one of those things where you barter with him, but if Milwaukee goes, we're hanging up the phone. But if you put Şengün on the table, we'll call it in. Then you make that sort of deal. But ultimately, like there's Amen Thompson succeeding in this series, and guys like Kuminga and Jalen Green not succeeding in this series. I actually think is a very interesting kind of storyline in the sense that they're all freaky athletes, but there's two things with Amen Thompson that separates him from the other two athletes. Amen Thompson is an elite on-ball defender.
Yes.
Kuminga and Jalen Green are not. And then Amen Thompson is elite processor in the middle of the floor. He makes quick decisions and he gets the ball where it needs to go. Those are both the specific reasons why Jalen Green and Kuminga struggle so much on offense. Amen Thompson is useful athleticism because he has a really high basketball IQ and he's great at one thing on defense already, which is what he can do on the ball. Kuminga and Green, they're not great at anything, and they're both poor processors, which is kind of a death sentence for an athlete, especially when you get in the postseason and all of a sudden, like, quickly reading the floor and making decisions is the difference between success and failure in many cases.
So I think the Warriors could struggle against Minnesota because Minnesota offers you size, but with veteran half-court experience. So you, like, sometimes with Houston, when the Golden State waved the white flag in that game 5, they were telling you, this team's not beating us back. We feel really good about this series. You can't give games to Minnesota. You're not giving anything to Minnesota. I think Minnesota's size, I think their coaching staff. I think Ant won't have as many great looks as he did against the Lakers. They're going to throw more bodies at him. I think, I think Draymond Green, they'll just throw different looks and bodies. So I don't think Ant will have, maybe he will, but I think sometimes Ant saw Lucas straddle over to him and thought, okay, this is a bucket. Which way do I want to take him? But I don't know if this is it doesn't feel like a great matchup for Golden State here.
So, what's interesting, Colin, I came away from the first round feeling like Golden State has no chance against OKC. But I actually think that they have a pretty decent chance against Minnesota. Let me give my 2 cents here because it's kind of a basketball matchup piece. So one of the reasons why Houston guarded Steph so well is they have a bunch of really quick players. And that quickness was very attentive to the details, and they didn't let Steph get easy ones off ball. Oklahoma City is laden. Their roster is laden with players like that. Super fast, super smart. Minnesota is a little bit more upright and big. And one of the things that stood out to me in this series was Steph felt really comfortable one-on-one against Jabari Smith. We had a late ISO against him in this game and against Dylan Brooks. They're bigger wings that struggle to shift their weight from side to side. That's the first piece of it. I think Steph is going to like his matchups against Naz Reid, Julius Randle, even Jaden McDaniels a little bit as a taller wing. The second piece of it is I spent this last week watching a bunch of Minnesota Golden State film because I just assumed they would close it out, which it took to this point, but they did end up closing it out. And Golden State won 3 straight games against Minnesota. And in the last 2 games in particular, they were clutch time games. And Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards, and Julius Randle multiple times lost focus off ball when Steph was running around, and they left him wide open and he burned them. Here's why that matters. The Lakers series was very different. You have these two really big forwards in Luka and LeBron. They're these big, strong forwards that are playing one-on-one basketball. There's no fancy approach other than I'm better than you one-on-one trying to score because I'm bigger and stronger. That fed right into the strength of Minnesota's defense, which is they have a bunch of big, strong perimeter athletes.
Yeah.
Golden State presents an entirely different challenge. It's a mental challenge, not a physical challenge. He's running in circles. There's all this ball and player movement, and you've got to be paying attention. And we even have a recent example with Anthony Edwards in the conference finals last year where he got cooked by Kyrie Irving because Dallas was running him through a bunch of off-ball screening action, and Ant was getting caught. So one of the things that I'm looking at in this series, and by the way, for the record, Colin, I think Minnesota probably will be favored. And I'm not saying I'm going to pick Golden State, but I've seen enough from the specific ways that Minnesota guards Golden State and the way that Steph can succeed against bigger, taller players because he's just so much faster. I do think Golden State's going to present some problems for them. And that's not even before we even get to the fact that Golden State is a flat out, substantially better defense than the Lakers were. And it will be a very different challenge. They're more athletic on the perimeter, and they're much better on the back line. They have the best defensive player of our era there. So I do think it'll be a closer and more competitive series than people realize.
The NBA 82-game grind is done. Now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs. Love them. They're here. Time for drama, clutch moments, Steph Curry, LeBron, jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. They're the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Playing games all the way to the finals. Now's the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. So all season long, DraftKings has been the go-to spot for NBA player props. That doesn't stop now. If you want to make your playoff experience even more intense, try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30, 40? Who knows? Or more. It's your call. If you're ready to place your first bet, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Takes 90 seconds. Lock in your bets, and let's make the playoffs unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. DraftKings customers that are new, bet $5. That's it, $5. And get 200 in bonus bets instantly. Just make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download their Sportsbook app. Takes 90 seconds. The code's Colin, C-O-L-I-N. That is code Colin. New customers get $200 in bonus bets. Betting just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Just like how true champs master both offense and defense, the BMW iX masters both ultimate performance and unbeatable space. Love mine. The greatest legends in sports never compromise in any aspect of their game, so why would you settle for anything less from your SUV? What I love about my BMW iX is that it redefines the electric vehicle experience, seamlessly integrates powerful performance, it's bold, a daring design, a refined interior, details, cutting-edge technology, basically pushes the boundaries of innovation. So thousands of details went into creating the ultimate electric SUV. Compromise, not one of them. I want to talk Cleveland getting beat in game one against Indiana. So this won't get as much publicity as a Warriors game. But the first thing is Darius Garland's out, so your point person's out. And again, Donovan Mitchell's a scorer. They have scoring guards, but it's like losing your quarterback. Whereas Indiana, I think Indiana plays aesthetically as pleasing a game to watch as anybody in the league. They play with pace. They can shoot threes, but don't rely on them. They're young. They're athletic. They have length. Don't depend on it. And Halliburton just doesn't turn the ball over. He's an incredibly smart player who their pacing, their ball movement, they get good shots. They rarely are sloppy. They're rarely out of control, which for a team that plays with pace, often you get out of control. And some of this, I'm just like, okay, Cleveland doesn't have their setup guy in the backcourt. Like some of this is great backcourt, missing their guy. But another part of this is when I watched it, I just thought, oh, the Pacers are playing their game. This is what they look like. When they're playing their best basketball, good pace, good shots, Halliburton's controlling all of it. And I'm like, this could be a problem. Like, I mean, Cleveland can really defend rim, wing, like they're really good. And we all know this. But boy, there were pacing things today where I'm like, man, Cleveland just looks out of sorts. That's what it looked like to me. Just visually, Cleveland was not in sync today. Why?
This was a really fascinating game one. I think you're hitting the nail on the head in the sense that I thought today was mostly that the Pacers just sent a message to the basketball world like this is what they look like when they're at their best. I thought you put that perfectly. They did it. First of all, they defended Donovan Mitchell extremely well, pressured him all over the place, played him into a really inefficient game. I want to get to that in a second because that's Donovan Mitchell tried to conquer his demons today by scoring, and I thought that was a mistake. That's something to keep in mind. But specifically with Indy on offense, they do such an amazing job of taking every single easy opportunity that ever presents itself in the game. If you're running up the floor and Tyrese sees you, he's throwing the kick ahead pass. If he's just dribbling on the wing and you're on the opposite wing and your man kind of sinks in towards the top of the key, he's just going to swing it to you every single time. And if you're on the opposite corner and your man's got a foot in the paint because he's trying to help, Tyrese is going to throw it over the top and he's going to hit you every single time. And there is very much an empowerment from Rick Carlisle that goes down the roster. Yes. Everyone is encouraged to be aggressive on the catch every single time. And so Tyrese is the relentless advantage hunter. And I thought the Cavs were entirely caught off guard by that today. They were really sloppy off ball, left a ton of easy openings that they can clean up in game two. And I'm sure Kenny Atkinson will be all over that. But Tyrese was hunting those advantages. And then everybody was just in a groove playing off of him, attacking every single time Tyrese hits them. And Tyrese also, this is the subplot here. Tyrese is what's bringing the real ceiling here where they look like they can actually beat anybody.
Yeah.
And it's because Tyrese is playing like he did to start last year. There was this thing that happened at the start of last year before he hurt his hamstring where he was killing everybody, Colin.
Yep.
Remember he won
yes.
The in-season tournament Eastern Conference and ended up losing to the Lakers.
And then he disappeared. Like then he got injured and everybody went, what happened to him?
That hamstring piece is his downhill ability to beat bigs and switches. Because the key with Tyrese Halliburton is he's such a gifted passer that if you run traditional ball screen coverages against him, he'll pick you apart. So what you have to do is you have to switch against him. He scored or generated a basket in a switch against Jared Allen 6 times today. Literally, 5 of his 9 made baskets were directly against Jared Allen in switches. And what that is it's the explosiveness. You saw that step through bank shot he hit on Jared Allen late. He was driving past Dean Wade on switches. Like Tyrese, when he's explosive, is a bigger, more athletic Steve Nash. He just needs to have that extra bit of explosion, which has been inconsistent since he hurt his hamstring. But the subtle thing that makes Indiana like a legitimate puncher's chance threat to win the conference is just how high of a level Tyrese is playing. On the other side of the floor, like Donovan Mitchell, I was watching I rewatched the game during the commercial breaks of that Houston game. And it was almost like a dude trying to ram his head through a brick wall. It was
no question. 2 guys
downhill,
took all their shots.
Yeah, and it's like what made Cleveland so great all year? The drive-in kick game. Max Strus hitting catch and shoot threes. Sam Merrill hitting catch and shoot threes. DeAndre Hunter hitting catch and shoot threes. That's their game. In the game, Colin, Indiana generated 17 unguarded catch and shoot jump shots. Cleveland generated 10. That's the difference in the approach. Donovan Mitchell, 4 assists, 30 shot attempts. He tried to win this game playing hero ball, and it got the entire team out of rhythm. And so even if Darius Garland is hurt and not at 100%, just having him back out there to help the flow of the offense, I think will go a long way. And Cleveland does have a lot to clean up on defense. Indy threw a great punch. I do think this is going to be a long series, though.
And now for our next segment, Whiskey Business. Yes, Whiskey Business brought to you by Green River Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Colin Cowherd podcast. Okay, I got to pay respect to Denver. So I took, it's really interesting for those listening. So the Clippers go into a game 7, and you think I said before the series, I said Ty Lue is worth a game because generally Denver's playing badly at the end of the year. They replace their coach. Like everything just spells trouble. Then they play an experienced Clippers team with an excellent coaching staff, and I'm like, this is bad news. And yet, the late game execution, the adjustments by Denver, it's like, oh, all right, maybe it's the players, maybe it's the staff, but I felt late in games. First, credit to Westbrook, Westbrook has found some sort of self-awareness in the last month where he's had these quotes he goes to the podium and he's like, my game doesn't look like everybody else's. He goes, but I know what I am. I bring a lot of energy. Now, sometimes that energy is a turnover. And I'm like, oh my God, who
I love that
unlocked
quote.
this? Who unlocked this Westbrook? But it's like, I have no problem with that game if you know it. And for years, he'd get very defensive. And now he's like, hey, man, my game doesn't look like everybody's. So it's like, that's right, Russell. That's exactly right. He's such a tone setter. He's so relentless. And now he's really come to terms with, hey, listen, man, it's a different game. It's not always great. He like almost laughs at it. He's like, it just doesn't look like yours. But I got to tell you, Denver, considering, I mean, you would predict, I thought, who's playing poorly at the end of the year, fires a respected coach, plays a veteran team that's well coached and win. I don't know why the reason was, but some of it is Jokic, some of it's Westbrook. Is more of it just disappointment from the Clippers?
It's all of it, Colin, because I mean, to your point, you want to know how a team that is, in my opinion, more talented. I think the Clippers have more talent.
So do I.
And they were playing substantially better, a better, more experienced
coach. They were on
coach.
fire for the last 40 days.
Oh, yeah. And they were in commanding position to win the series, Colin. They were up 2-1. Like they should have won that series. Like there's a whole other conversation to have about the Clippers being in the position that they're being in. But I want to credit Nikola Jokic. He's the main one that stood out to me. What happened after Game 3 when the Clippers really blew them out and took control of the series? Jokic got on his guys in the huddle and was like, "This is not good enough." In Game 3, though, in the third quarter, or excuse me, in Game 4, so Clippers up 2-1. In Game 4, it was close at the half. In that third quarter, Jokic played one of his best offensive quarters of the series to that point, and built that first bit of margin. And really, since that point, for the entire second half of the series, the Nuggets scored the ball extremely well. They had like a 127 something offensive rating with Jokic on the floor. Like they were excellent offensively after that Game 3 kind of blow up that they had. And I thought Jokic in his overall intensity really led the way. Jamal Murray obviously was fantastic. Aaron Gordon was amazing in Game 7.
Christian Brown to start Game 7 was really good.
And he was the guy who did the great job on James Harden throughout the series. In general, throughout the tail end of the series, I just thought Denver was in control. I never really once we got to that point, I felt pretty sure that Denver was going to close the deal. I picked the Clippers to win the series at the start of the series, but once we got to Game 4, I picked Denver. I felt like Jokic was just so much more in control of the half court dynamic, and then to take it over to the Clippers side. With James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, the two of them, they just aren't good enough right now to be able to compete in the Western Conference with their shot creation. Kawhi Leonard struggled to handle double teams all series and just wasn't aggressive enough. James Harden, it was like feast or famine with him. I mean, he has 11 in Game 5, he has 7 in Game 7. And one last thing before I kick it back to you about Westbrook. One of the things I loved about his quote, and he used the same phrase that you used when we did the pod on Wednesday. You said force of nature. Yeah. And he was like, I'm a force of nature. This is what I do. And the way I interpreted it, it was almost like he was saying, like, my style is to not think, but just to just act. Yeah. Which is funny because in the quote, he was like, I definitely think like I'm a smart player. And I know he is, and that's not what I mean, but like he's definitely an instinct player. Like he follows his gut and he doesn't second guess himself. And that comes with mistakes, naturally. But when you combine that like audacity and confidence with his overwhelming athletic traits, it makes him a wrecking ball in like the best possible way. And
he can my God.
Like that stretch towards the end of the game where he's just getting steals and going out in transition and dunking everything, like that is force of nature basketball. And yeah, it comes late in with mistakes, but I would argue the thing that's put him over the top is one, his ability to operate as a cutter around Jokic, and two, just him becoming a better three-point shooter.
Yes.
Him becoming a better three-point shooter has gotten rid of all the clangs that were part of those bad plays and mistakes that were really causing him to hurt his impact.
He's also a momentum player. So you notice this in this series. If he hit a three, he hit another. And I think sometimes, and he's obviously a very confident guy, the way he dresses and his attitude, he's a very confident guy. But even the most confident, Alex Rodriguez got dropped to 8th in a batting order once for the Yankees. I don't care how confident you are. Everybody struggles, right? Like basketball is so much of basketball more than any sport is a confidence game. Like even Steph Curry will have these 0 for 6 stretches. You're like, this is just not a good Steph. And he'll go off ball and move around. And so Westbrook can have these bad stretches. But the truth is, when I watch him, and like Amen Thompson has so much value because he's so relentless and so aggressive that, guys, he's a pain in the ass to guard. You know what I mean? Like, Westbrook's hard. He's hard to guard. He's in your face. He's physical. And by the way, like a running back that's 5'8" with leverage, Russell's got this trunk. And
he's big.
He's really strong. And so you're a 6'7" guy, and Westbrook's got leverage on you, and he's banging you around. He rebounds exceedingly well for his size. And so there are these basketball players, and they're very rare, that it's just like a genetic, they're just relentless athletes. And so I love that Westbrook's like, listen, man, it doesn't look like everybody else's game, but I know what I bring. And it's like, that's exactly what you do. And like a lot of times, like Jalen Green doesn't know what he is. And I don't think he even has a pathway to it. Like Westbrook's come full circle to being a guy that I always thought lacked a self-awareness, to having total self-awareness. It's like, hey man, I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. I know what I'm doing in this series. So I think when you do what we do for a living, and I'm critical of people, you also have to be fair. Yeah. I don't care if it's Baker Mayfield or Russell Westbrook. I watched him in this series, and Jokic is obviously the best player in the world. I thought Westbrook was really valuable to the Nuggets. Do they match up with OKC at all here?
This is a matchup I was hoping for. As much as I thought the Clippers would beat Denver, I didn't think the Clippers had nearly the playmaking talent to beat Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City plays very aggressively up in passing lanes and on the ball and ball pressure to try to force turnovers and get out in transition. That's like one of their foundational traits. They're the best defense in the league, and they get out in transition and run on you like crazy. Denver is an elite, top tier passing team. They pass the ball extremely well. They're also a great screen setting team, which is very important because that's how they get free. Guys like Jamal Murray are going to be guarded by Lou Dort. You've got to get Lou Dort off of Jamal Murray. The main thing, though, is Jokic is a superpower. OKC cannot guard him. He posted up 62 times against Oklahoma City this year. That's over 15 times per game. He averaged only 10 against everyone else. This is a matchup that he loves to post up against a lot. They successfully can set screens to get Jamal Murray open. He had a big game in this matchup this year. They each won on each other's floor once. It was 2-2 in the season series. Denver's going to be able to score, though, and that's the main reason why I think it'll be a longer, more interesting series. In their last matchup, they hung 140 points on him. The Jokic machine, the Jokic-Murray machine, they're going to score against OKC. Now, in theory, on the other side of the floor, this is a type of matchup that favors Denver in the sense that they can load up, and it's not a real space you out type of team. Oklahoma City can get cold from three sometimes. They can be, a little bit sloppy with their passing sometimes. But that said, Oklahoma City's a lot older than they were last year, more mature than they were last year, more experienced than they were last year. I was really impressed with them in their first round series because Memphis actually plays a similar style of defense to Denver in terms of loading up the strong side. And I thought Oklahoma City passed through Memphis really well. So OKC should be favored. I was stunned at how much they were favored by. They were minus 700 to win the series, which I thought was crazy on DraftKings. I would have thought more like a minus 300, minus 350 kind of favorite. I think OKC should be favored, but Vegas is saying Denver doesn't have a chance. I think Denver's going to score, and that is just more than enough to make this a competitive series, in my opinion.
When you want to enjoy life's simpler pleasures, reach for Green River Whiskey. Whether it's rye whiskey or single barrel bourbon, you're getting over a century of craftsmanship packed into every bottle. Hop on over to greenriverwhiskey.com and discover a legend in a bottle today. Hey, so we all make mistakes, but owning up to them is the right thing to do. So, Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula and it did not go over well with their fans. So Degree's whole thing is it turns up the sweat and odor protection when you turn up the effort. And good thing it does because Cool Rush fans really turned up the effort to bring the original formula back. One guy even started an online petition, and Degree listened. They admitted they effed up. They're bringing back the original Cool Rush scent. They're bringing it back, and it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. It's back in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. There's a reason it's been the number one men's antiperspirant for the last decade. It's the same reason why people were not happy when it changed. So if you've never tried it, it might be a good time to see what the fuss is about. Head to your local Walmart, Target, and try the OG Degree Cool Rush for yourself. The NBA playoffs are heating up, and if you want to catch the action in person, and I know you do and I do, go to Game Time. They make getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard-to-get playoff tickets. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. So last-minute deals, killer, all-in prices, views from your seat. The lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time is great. It takes the guesswork out of buying professional basketball playoff tickets. And you don't want to go there guessing. They have zone deals. You can save even more when you choose a section. Let Game Time choose the seats. And with Game Time ticket coverage, your price is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. The code is Colin for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account. The redeem code COLIN, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. You know, let's go back to the Warriors, and we can finish it with this. Jason Timpf, obviously, hoops tonight. A lot of the old teams lost. The Clippers were an old team, they lost. The Lakers were an old team, they lost. Milwaukee was an old team, they lost. Golden State's an old team, and they won. Some of that is because they were playing a young team that feels like they're a year or two behind OKC. Yeah. Like they're just not, like Cleveland was 3 years ago, OKC was last year. Some of it's just the baby step nature of this league. Houston wasn't ready to win a series. Yeah. And even though they had some clear athletic length and depth advantages, but there is something to be said about Kerr was really, Peyton's sick. Kuminga, he doesn't want. Basically, they had five guys and then like a Looney. That was the lineup. It's like five guys and Looney. There is something to be said for Steve Kerr. He was a great broadcaster, smart executive, really good player. He did a lot of coaching tonight. There was a lot of, when Curry's struggling, he is going through lineups. Kuminga's in, Kuminga's off the floor. Looney's in, I'm keeping Looney in. I want to talk a little bit about Kerr. All these old teams lost. It would have been very easy on a night. If I'd have said to you, you didn't watch the game, Curry was awful in the first half. And it was just, Warriors really struggled offensively. And they won. Mm-hmm. I think some of it is, I think Kerr has such a heartbeat. We said into this series, Jason, they have to play Kuminga. And they really didn't. And it worked. And I would have told you, Kuminga won't play much. What he does, he clearly frustrates the hell out of Kerr. Game 7, Peyton will be sick as a dog. There was a million reasons why they should have lost this series. Wasn't there?
Yeah, I texted our mutual friend, Logan Swaim, in the middle of this game. And I said, man, because, he's a fellow Lakers fan, as we've been lamenting the disappointing end to the season. And I said to him, I still think Kerr and the Warriors are just miles smarter than the Lakers. And it just drives me crazy when I'm watching them because Kerr just played every button right tonight. Now, obviously, there was the illness to GP2, but it was right. Buddy was the guy. You needed to lean into Buddy. That was the right move. Quick hooks with Kuminga. He got 2 quick shifts. He made a bunch of mistakes right away, and he was boom. He called a timeout to get him out in one of them. So so he had quick hooks on Kuminga going towards Kevon Looney in this game instead of Quentin Post. He understood this is going to be a bloodbath. This game's going to be about rebounding, not about spacing. So we're going to go towards Kevon Looney. I thought that was smart. The against the zone, I won't get into the intricacies on here because it just would take too long, but there were a couple of specific things that they tried right away and got really good looks against the zone, which was the big story because in game 6, when they lost control, Houston zoned them 18 times in the fourth quarter and they scored 3 times in 18 possessions. So that was a huge storyline coming into game 7. Would Kerr and the guys be able to solve the zone? They did a much better job against it tonight. Every single little button that needed to get pushed got pushed. Yeah. And it was the difference. This game was a 3-point game in the second half. I think we underestimate how much these series come down to pretty tight margins. Like if you look at Denver, versus the Clippers, you've got an overtime game. You've got Aaron Gordon dunking at the buzzer to win one of the games. Look at Detroit versus New York. All those games swung on crunch time sequences. Lakers, Minnesota, game 3 and game 4 were where the series were decided. Both of those games were tied in the final minutes, and Minnesota pulled away. Like the margins are slim. And if you have an advantage in, the strategic side of things with your coaching staff, it makes a massive difference.
Oh, I do want to talk about this. Obviously, JJ Redick. I didn't think JJ had a great last couple games in the series. Okay. And I was thinking about this. I went on a walk this morning in Chicago, and I thought about this. So when Matt LaFleur got the Green Bay Packers job, he'd never been good-looking, smart guy in Tennessee, coordinator, but had never been a head coach, had never owned the room. So he goes to this iconic organization, replaces a Super Bowl winning coach, Mike McCarthy. And the first thing I noticed is they became a very good first quarter team, much like JJ Redick. Very intentional, classic coordinator becomes a head coach. The Packers offense, first quarter, it was clearly that he was a great in the film room coach. That's why he got the Packer job. But I didn't love his halftime adjustments because as a coordinator, the coach is doing a lot of the half. He's doing the talking at half, right? So you're doing a lot of what the coach wants at half. And then I thought by year 2, Matt LaFleur became a really good full coach. He came in his first year. He was they took leads that you win 70% of your games in the NFL if you take a lead, but he wasn't a great adjustment coach. He was year 2. Similarly, JJ Redick, Lakers were a very good first quarter team. Many times this year they'd have these great stretches, very intentional, very good in the film room, very smart guy. But I do think adjustments take time to be a great adjuster. Kerr is a great adjuster. I think Missoula and Boston's gotten much better at that. Playoff series have 4 and 5 adjustments. Chris Finch's team, very good at layering. And I just think JJ, I think it's just part of being a rookie head coach. Jason Kidd, his first go around. You're good in the film room. You're intentional. You come out. This is what we do well and they don't. So much of this league is second half, last 4 minutes, out of a timeout. And is it a fair criticism on the film you watch to say that JJ will become a better overall coach, that there were times this year that he wasn't? Now, maybe the opposite is true, but I just didn't think he was always the greatest adjuster.
I thought he was a little slow to adjust at times. I think in general with JJ, I have had no big picture concern, just simply because I think he's smart and I think he's hyper competitive and like kind of obsessive, which I think is what you just need to be good at that job. Is I think he'll have some issues over his career with just how hot tempered he is and how that can rub people the wrong way. I mean, we saw that with Mike Malone. You can wear out the room pretty quick, even if you're a great coach. And I think those will be things that he'll have to work at. The perfect example of that to me was the Warriors-Lakers regular season game towards the end of the year, where like Steve Kerr comes out for his little interview at the end of the first quarter, and he's just so calm and cool and collected. And then they go to JJ for his interview, and he's like clearly mad and angry and agitated. And it's like you learn too that like your players start to. I actually learned this from the high school coach that I coached with. Like your players take on your personality in a lot of cases, and which is why it's so important for you to kind of stay as even keeled as you can. Because if you get super emotional and worked up, your players will get emotional and worked up and stuff like that. But over the course of the series, I thought he made several mistakes. There was at the beginning of the series, the Lakers just came out looking flat out unprepared for game 1 in terms of the intensity. Yeah. JJ admitted after the fact that he thought he made a mistake by not scrimmaging at all in that week before the game, which when I heard that, I was like, wait, you guys didn't play basketball for a week? I'm like, you're about to play the Timberwolves. It's going to be a war. You need to be ready. But to JJ's credit, he acknowledged it. He understood that there was a mistake there. Offensively, I thought the team made a key mistake in the series by not attacking Minnesota's smalls at any point in the series. There was no extended stretch where LeBron or Luka attempted to post up in that series. LeBron shot. Colin, this is a crazy post. LeBron shot out of the post in that entire series 5 times in 5 games. This is like literally what he's done in his career as like the thing he goes to when his back is against the wall. And he was just unwilling to do it. But it also goes to Luka. Luka wasn't attacking smalls; they were only attacking bigs. There was the substitution pattern at late in Game 4, which I think again is a little bit more convoluted because they win that game. You're playing Monday morning quarterback in a lot of ways. But Game 5, though, in particular, he switched his scheme towards double teaming, and they looked completely unprepared, meaning like they were giving up wide open layups and dunks to where like if they were a little bit more schematically prepared for that, they should have been able to at least tilt that towards the 3-point line and certain guys shooting. They looked like an unprepared team for that scheme, which I think reflects poorly on JJ. But at the end of the day, like I thought JJ overwhelmingly in his first year exceeded expectations.
Same.
I don't think JJ is the reason they lost to Minnesota. I think the reason they lost to Minnesota is Austin Reeves was awful for the majority of the series. And like literally the Minnesota took him out. And Luka, whenever the series was hanging in the balance, late in Game 5, late in Game 4, late in Game 3, Luka was bad. And that really was the series. And like I will always kind of look at the stars before I look at coaches, but there's no doubt that JJ's got a lot of room to grow. I'm just not worried about it because of how competitive, how smart he is. That stuff will come in time.
I do think they have to consider there's some duplication with Austin Reeves, and they just need somebody's going to want Austin Reeves, and somebody's going to be looking to get rid of a big. And it's nothing against Austin. I think he has value. That wasn't a great series for him. Wasn't a great matchup. I mean, the truth is, Minnesota's athletic and strong and physical, and they pounced on it, and he just couldn't get to the free throw line. But I look at it and I think he has served his purpose. He's an unranked player. Use him as a trade piece. But if you're not going to play Jackson Hayes against the team with Rudy Gobert, you need some size. You got to get a legitimate big in here.
Austin Reeves is one of my favorite players. And so it hurts me to say this because rooting for him has been, and watching him go from like literally an undrafted guy to like a legitimate player, probably deserves $30 million a year in this league. Like he's so good. And by the way, Colin, this is the first time in several playoff series that I've watched Austin and thought that he was overwhelmed. Like he's been very good in 4 previous playoff series. So like Austin, this was a really bad matchup for him. They're just so athletic. He caught the Anthony Edwards matchup most of the series, and Ant just put him in jail, and Dante DiVincenzo defended him really well. My thing is it's more just about roster construction. I don't think you can build a lineup that succeeds in the modern NBA with 2 inferior perimeter athletes. I think that's where you're reaching kind of like below the like mandatory minimum level of athleticism that you need. And so even though like it makes some sense in the context of LeBron, when LeBron retires, you're now building around Austin and Luka, and you would need the other 3 guys in that lineup to be like absolute peak athletes for that to work. And that's just difficult to do in terms of roster allocation. And so honestly, when I look at it this summer, that doesn't mean you get rid of Austin for nothing. But I begin to look at Austin as a key asset with which to return somebody that actually fits this timeline better. And there's the second piece of it, which is if you get rid of Austin, you better have a plan for another ball handler because LeBron is 40. So like there's got to be this is going to be a really fine line that they're walking this offseason because they need to walk the win now line alongside LeBron, but they also need to have some sort of plan post LeBron. And so that's where it gets tricky. I look at like, if you could call up Brooklyn and see if you can't package together Austin and another salary and get like a Cam Johnson and a Nick Claxton. So you get like a legit 3-and-D guy and a real center to put next to Luka and LeBron. But even then, you better be calling behind the scenes to stars and be like, hey, we're going to need somebody to come in here and be Luka's number 2 pretty soon. And, maybe it ends up being a Kyrie after his injury or something like that. Who knows? But there's definitely a fine line here that they have to walk and a lot of different pieces that got to go right. But I left the series thinking the same way you did, Colin. I'm like, I love Austin. I'm not sure if he makes a lot of sense here in the big picture.
Nico Harrison gave you a little bit of a roadmap when he had Kyrie and Luka, and like, okay, I need size and rim protection.
Yep.
And they were really good and got to the finals. And I just think that's the reality. It was the reality with Carmelo Anthony, who wasn't a willing defender. It was James Harden. There are just players in this league who are so gifted offensively, you overlook stuff. If LeBron is old and Luka is your star, you're going to need some elite defenders. You need rim protection. That's just the way it is. It's okay. And, you can get it. I mean, they almost pulled off that deal was it Mark Williams?
Mark Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's the answer either, Colin.
No, he's always hurt.
And he's not a good defender.
Oh, so he's just a big guy, not a great defender.
He's just a big guy. He's got a little bit of the Charlotte Hornets-itis. So there's always a little bit of that, like maybe you bring him in and you could make him better. But I didn't love the film that I saw with him playing defense in Charlotte.
All right. So we get ready for some more unbelievable NBA playoffs. Have been so damn fun. Just so great. And I could not wait for this game to start. And I was
looking forward to this one too. This was one of the biggest games I can remember in recent history. Like the ramifications of Golden State.
The number's going to be huge. The number's going to be huge for this. And by the way, let's give credit to the Pacers. Fun watch. If you're a casual NBA fan, they're just a great pacing, really smart. Halliburton's a tremendous playmaker and passer. They've got well coached. They've got physicality. They can shoot a three. They don't depend on it. Just a really nice pacing, an easy, fun, smart basketball watch. And they're going to give Cleveland some trouble. So as always, Jason, this was great.
It's good to see you, Colin. I'll see you next week.